guest, Mr. Jeffrey Tobin. He's a motivational speaker and leadership coach who helps people discover real personal fulfillment. Hi, Jeffrey.
That sounds so easy. Can we just tell people to feel fulfilled and it'll be good? Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. This is a lot of fun and it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. So for people who don't already know you, can you give them a bit more of an overview of what you do and your background and your experience?
All right. Well, my background pretty much is entrepreneurship. Most of my background has been business owning and starting businesses and kind of expanding those businesses. In the process of doing that, that was in the last 30 years. I know I look like I'm 27, but I've been doing 27 for a long time. And so my wife and I have run these businesses. And in the process, I've learned a lot about motivation and leadership and how to work with folks. In that process, I discovered a lot about what I think is the most motivating thing for people. And it's not motivating that I actually do for somebody. I know I can't do that, but just with all of the relationships that I built over the years, this became very apparent to me. So I did a lot of study and found out what I believe to be the best and most magnetic, if you will, goal that anyone can have. So I started doing individual coaching. I started doing team groups for trust, accountability groups where we had entrepreneurial leaders together in small groups, and we would work every quarter on new projects and goal setting. And this really struck a chord. It became then as part of a speaking career, which I was trying to balance while I was doing my my office work. But it's one of those things where you got one foot in the boat and one foot on the shore, and it both didn't work. So we just sold businesses a couple of years ago, and now this is all I'm doing, and it's the love of my life. Well, no, my wife would not agree with that, but you get the point.
That's great. And is it usually something you do remotely, or do you do some in person as well?
Well, you know, I do some remotely because I do some coaching, but really what I love to do the most is to be on the stage speaking with large groups of people and to work with smaller groups of people in workshops. Those are the two things, because it's a really important message I think people need to hear, and I think it's very helpful, and they seem to as well. So the more people I can reach, the happier I am about it, the more fulfilled I feel.
Yeah. So now we're in this kind of state of panic. People are worried, they're having to self-isolate. Some people are worried about their health, whether it's physical health or mental health. What are some of the challenges that you think people are facing at the moment?
Well, you know, probably, Sophie, the answer to that is probably what everybody's talked through, I think, a lot, whether it's on Facebook or, you know, on the news shows and those types of things. It's isolation. I really feel for people who are not only isolated, but are by themselves, where they don't even have the human touch. It makes me feel discouraged and wish I could do something about it. But reflection is an opportunity at this time for many reasons that this is a really good time to utilize for reflection. And my perspective is that we do it kind of in a backward way, the way that we're used to doing it. And so I like to provide a different perspective on that. But I think just having alone time, and we have plenty of that, but setting aside some alone time when you can really sit and think about the future in a particular way is really important. And we can do that now. Most people can do that now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So going into some more specifics about what you would recommend to someone who is struggling during this time, do you have any specific tips or recommendations or pieces of advice that people can take and use and apply right now?
Well, I do, but I can't think of anything. Oh, yes, some things just came to me, as a matter of fact. Whenever I think of a challenge, I try to help people think of not just the challenge that's ahead of us, because that's the first place that we go. There's a challenge, as a group, we have to accomplish this, or as a family, we have to accomplish this, or we have the virus that's going around and I need to protect myself. So what happens is we have this wall of fear that goes up, and it's natural, and it's where we start thinking. What I like to ask people to do is to realize that there's another side to that wall, and we'll eventually. Now, I don't know how long it's going to take to get to that place, but we are going to be on the other side of the wall, and the skies are more clear, and it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. But I like to help people think about what happens on that side, so we're not always getting stuck at the wall. And the way that I like to do that is to help people think not in terms of what we typically do, like, what do I want to do next? And what do I want to do with my life? And why am I here? And what's my purpose and all that? Those are some really important questions, and they're really difficult questions, or so we think. Lots of times, I think, Sophie, we get the idea, I really want to try to find out why I'm here. What's it all about? And then we think, well, it's just too big of a question. I can't answer it. So that's where I like to help people walk through that process. And perhaps that's where you'd like to go.
Wow. Okay. So do you have any particular kind of resources or websites or programs that you can offer people at the moment, or anywhere you suggest that they go to learn more about this kind of thing if they need support?
Yes, that's actually pretty easy. If I may, I'll just give them a brief overview of why and how important it is to think in this way.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the easy way to think about it is the omega question, the omega being the last letter in the Greek alphabet. People know about the omega as the biggest and the last. People typically think about their futures in terms of, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? And they work down that line until they get to the place where they're successful and they're playing golf and they die on the golf course. And that's how we're really taught, isn't it? About, what do I want to do next? Where do I want to go? But really, to my mind, the question needs to be reversed. We need to turn the question around from, what do I want to do with my life, to what do I want to have done with my life? Now, when you get to the end and you look back, things have a very different perspective, as you can imagine. In fact, there's a great book by Bronnie Ware, Bronnieware, called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And at some point, we're all going to get to that place, whether it's quick or it's over a long period of time. And what's important is finding out, what are the things I want to have done. And most of those things have to do with relationships and those kinds of things. So my question is basically based on that. What do I want to have done with my life? When we answer that question, which is not complicated, I have a 3-step process. Suddenly, every decision we make is so much easier. It's, what books do I want to read? What people do I want to hang out with? What movies do I want to see? What foods do I want to eat? Do I want to volunteer for this organization, or do I want to take this job? Every question either fits on the line between where you are today and the person you will eventually become, either fits right on that line or it doesn't. It's a straight line, and it makes it a lot easier. That doesn't mean we're not going to have, varying paths as we go along, but having this very clear, what do I want to have done with this? You can imagine how every question, every concern, everything that we do, it either falls right on that line and is helpful, or it drops off into the abyss. And that's really good, because it clears our minds for the things that we know we want to accomplish.
Okay, so do you have any examples, maybe in your own life or some of the people that you've worked with, just to illustrate what that might look like to someone who isn't familiar with this concept or this process?
Yes, in fact, I can't name the names, but in one presentation I did to a large national sales organization, one of the owners came up to me, I guess it was a few weeks after the event, and she said, you changed everything. And I went, well, wait a minute, what do I mean I changed everything? I didn't change anything. I gave you an idea. And what she did was she was vice president of sales in this family owned and run business, in a very important position. It's a large corporation. And she said, I quit. And I thought, uh-oh, she quit because of me. And in fact, that was partially true. But what she realized by going through that process and thinking it through was what she was doing and all the goals she had been setting and all of the future she had been planning was not the right thing for her. Because as she looked back at it from the other side, what do I want to have done? Suddenly things took a different perspective. And it changed her whole life. It changed the corporation to some degree as well. And now she, of course, she's spending more time with her family and those types of things, as well as doing her work. But the things that are truly important, the legacy she wants to leave, came right to the top, and it changed everything. In fact, the whole world got better, not just for her, but people around her, because she had a great focus, great clarity about who she was and what life she wanted to leave.
I love that. Actually, one of the things that I discuss with my coaching clients is a similar concept, is that think about what you want your obituary to say. What do you want people to say about you when you're not around anymore? And again, it's that legacy. It's like, when you really think about it, it gets rid of so many of the day-to-day worries that you have, because you think, well, in the grand scheme of things, am I actually going to even care? Does it really matter? Why am I spending all of my time and energy on these things when what I really want is this? And yeah, I personally use that all the time. I find it just helps me stay focused, and it energizes me when I remind myself of what that looks like for me.
Beautiful.
And it's not something that anyone else can do. I can see how this is a very introspective type of process. So if somebody is at home right now and they think, I understand what you're trying to say, but I don't really know how to do this for myself, where should they start? Do you have any prompts or any tips?
Well, first I want to say good for you, because that's a great question. Steve Covey, this seven, whatever, I can't remember the name of the book right now, but one of the things he talks about is keeping the end in mind. Keep the end in mind. And he doesn't spend enough time on it, I don't think. But like you're saying, write your own obituary. That's a really easy way to do it. And I'm so glad to hear that you do that with your clients, because it's such an important thing. Probably the biggest difference that things that I add to that, I have a process of thinking about that. And the reason I have a process is because sometimes people ask questions about, well, is making a lot of money okay? Is it okay for me to, entrepreneurs and business owners, is it okay for me to make a lot of money? And so the thing that I remind them is, make as much money as you want to. This is, that's okay. There's nothing problem with making money. It's how you do it. You don't want to be greed and pride and all those issues. But if you can, what you want to do is you want to build the assets as much as you can so that you can utilize those funds. They're a tool. They're not an end. They're a means. They're a tool. And so the assets that people build, their attributes that they are able to embody, and the activities that they do, are all there to support the person they want to become, the Omega. And so they become tools to help us get to that place. And so the last thing is, there's actually a process. And I'll give you the information about how people can get this. But if they'd like to, they can go to my website. It's my name, jeffreytobin.com, and you'll see it on the screen, I'm sure, somewhere. This is a workbook. It's called The Omega Question. And the benefit of having gone through this process, Sophie, is that when a person gets to the end, they've actually created, as you say, an obituary. What's different about this is that this obituary says, here are the attributes I want to embody. This is the kind of person I want to be. The second thing is, what do I want to accomplish, whether it's school, family, relationships, or those types of things. And then what assets do I need to help me accomplish those things? And they break it down, and then they break it down again into a very short sentence or two. And now their focus, their Omega answer or statement, if you will, is something they can put up on the bathroom wall. And it's something they can remind themselves about on a regular basis, which helps them keep this connection between the alpha and the omega. It helps them to focus. And that's what that is.
I love that. I love that you can start really big and then you can just kind of like hone it down into like a mantra or something that just represents you as a person and what you're supposed to be doing with your with yourself, you know? I like that.
I can see you make a great coach.
Thank you. We have a few more minutes left. Is there anything else that you would like to share with people? Any other resources, any other advice, anything that might put people's mind at ease a little bit about what's going on?
Well, let me focus, if I might, on the folks who are at home, and especially now, who are not working, who are used to working. So we already talked about them being isolated. We talked about them maybe even not feeling a sense of purpose, and the income issues and the myriad challenges that there are. There's another side to this wall, and we're going to get past that. We don't know what it's going to look like, but you know what? Everyone who's listening to this has been through big challenges before, and they will get through this. We all will get through this. But what's it like on the other side? So I would ask those folks, especially those who go to work every day, managerial, landscaping, doesn't matter. When you think about sitting back on your desk or picking up the clipboard of things that you need to be doing this week, a friend of mine once used the expression, the kryptonite necklace. Most people know that kryptonite is the killer for Superman. You know, it's the Achilles heel for Super. And he talked about the kryptonite necklace. It's because we had gone to this coaching session with a lot of entrepreneurs and people from all over the world. It was a fantastic course. Dan Sullivan is the guy's name. And what we realized was you feel fantastic when you come away from, you know, being coached or going to a big seminar. You just feel like, oh, this is great. I'm going to take all this back to the office. And you get back to the office or you get back to your regular work, whatever it is. And then you put on the kryptonite necklace of the way things were, which means the phone's always ringing, the email alarms are going off, all of the interruptions, people coming in the door or customers calling and saying what's going on. So that's the place that people, I think, can start to think about, what can I do when I get to the other side of this and walk in and sit down at my office? What are some of the things that I can do to help ease the interruptions, maybe delegate some things that I'm really not good at doing? In fact, some people can hire people. I've hired, some of my greatest success has come from the fact that I know what I'm terrible doing, and I hire somebody else to do this thing. I just do the stuff I'm good at doing. I love it. They love it. So we progress more quickly. Mm-hmm. And that thing is a really good way, I think, for people to plan ahead and to have a little bit less fear when they get back into the office, because now they know, I'm going to plan now for what's eventually going to happen when I get back to work, and how am I going to deal with the customers? All my lawn customers are going to voicemail. You know, I'll answer them at noon and at the end of the day. Stuff like that can be very helpful. And I think it'll help set people's minds at ease, not just now, but also when they get back to their offices and to their lawn services.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I think that's really great advice. Yeah, as you said, we do have time on our hands now, and if you can plan ahead, it does help to reduce that anxiety. It makes you feel like you're not as apprehensive about getting back to the full swing of things. Maybe some changes can be made, and that can help.
Right, and it starts with thinking about it, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all of the insights that you've shared. I'm sure it will help so many people.